South Park just released their new episode, Sora Not Sorry, and it might be the grossest episode of South Park since Human Centipede. And no, it's not because of what Droopy does to Kyle, though that was pretty gross. No, it's because of this. Yeah, we're not going to be able to show that on YouTube. Now, it's not exactly a secret that AI slop has pretty much taken over the internet. It's all over TikTok and Instagram. It's all over YouTube. It's taking down perfectly transformative videos on my channel again. So it was only a matter of time before South Park did an episode about it. And man, what an episode this was. Because not only was it excellent cultural commentary, but it also had some of the most absurd and ridiculous scenes we've seen from this show in recent years. Like truly, we got to see some messed up stuff here. I'm talking like Cartman and Kyle at the end of Imagination Land levels of messed up. So you know it's serious. And they managed to do it in a way that not only echoed general sentiments about AI, but also commented on how it can be weaponized in the worst ways possible, which is one of the main focuses of this episode. What happens when people use AI technology for all the wrong reasons? And most importantly, how that can lead to Cartman getting rug pulled.
What? Hawk Tuah Koi got rug pulled? No! My money's gone! No! Holy crap, Freddy Fazbear!
Wait, what's that? That's not a real South Park video? God damn it. Sorry guys, I don't know what happened there. I totally thought that was South Park and couldn't tell the difference at all. Anyways, this episode starts off with Red going door to door, asking people to sign a petition to get everyone to smell her farts. But before she can get the signature, Santa Claus shows up and starts pissing on her face. No, seriously, that's actually how this episode starts. This is not a bit. Now, obviously, this turns out to be an AI video, because of course the show wouldn't just randomly open an episode like that. But the AI video was created by Butters as revenge for what Red did to him in the Labubu episode from season 27. And I gotta say, I love that for a few reasons. One, I like that Butters is upset over being used like that. Red was totally to him, and I'm glad he isn't just taking it lying down. I mean, revenge porn is not the way to go. He should just tell her off for being a manipulative ass, but I'm glad he's having a spine about it. It matches up with the growth we've seen from Butters over the course of the show. Because I can tell you right now, season 6 Butters would never do this. He'd just take the L and move on. Like even as Professor Chaos, I kind of doubt that he ever would have done something like this back in the day. But it totally feels in line with the Butters we've been getting in the more recent seasons, and I'm glad he's not just letting girls walk all over him like he used to. But the first thought I had when seeing this AI video was, damn, Butters has really improved his gross out writing abilities since Scrody McBoogerballs. Santa pissing on Red's face is a big step up from the poo that took a pee. But of course, it turns out that Butters didn't prompt this video all by himself. He had the help of Kenny. And that makes so much more sense in my opinion, because Kenny has historically had a very disgusting sense of humor. So I definitely love the consistency from the show there. And also it's nice to see that Butters and Kenny have continued their friendship from going native back in season 16. But the other thing I liked about this was just the inclusion of Red herself. I think it's awesome that we're seeing more of her personality this season, considering that the Labubu episode was like her first real big moment in the sun. And it's clear from both of these episodes that Red is kind of a snarky, edgy girl. She's got some wild ideas for her AI videos, and she's clearly not above playing dirty or using boys to get what she wants. So I think that makes for an interesting personality to work with in future episodes should they continue to use her more. Now naturally, because Butters is dumb enough to post these AI videos to his account and share them with everyone, Red sees the Sora videos and gets pissed on by Santa. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But yeah, she obviously doesn't like what Butters did and decides to get revenge on him using her own AI video. And so when the school gathers for an assembly on America and why it's so great, instead of the video that PC Principal wants to show, we get this.
Yep, that's right. I'm Butters and I'm gonna have sex with Totoro right now.
Don't.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that this was going to be a back and forth AI war waged by Butters and Red, I knew that this was going to be one of the funniest episodes of this run. There's just so much that they can do with that concept, you know? And seeing Butters go to town with Totoro like that was just something else. But honestly, I think this whole episode hit especially hard for me because by some weird twist of fate, a bunch of my friends downloaded Sora just a few days ago, and they've been using it to rip on each other in the exact same way that Butters and Red are doing in this episode. I mean, within reason, obviously. You can't actually do that to anime characters on Sora. That's a content violation. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had a South Park episode be so immediately relevant to something happening in my life in the way that these events lined up, which just makes the episode that much better for me personally. So I'm unashamedly biased towards liking it now. Anyways, the next scene cuts to Leanne at the police station, reporting that Eric has been missing for a few weeks now, which is our first real bit of continuation to that storyline since Twisted Christian. And I gotta say, I really feel for her in this scene. I honestly didn't even consider how she felt about Cartman being taken away 2 episodes ago, since I was more focused on seeing where that storyline was going. But it makes a lot of sense that she'd be breaking down over her son being effectively kidnapped, and I think that's a nice complementary angle to play on. Plus, it's just more proof of the argument I try to make in my Cartman's mom video, where I claim that over time, she's evolved into a proper good mother for Eric. But of course, this is almost immediately cut short because the police get word of what happened at school with Butters and Totoro, and they decide to head to the school right away, which introduces the second major dynamic of this episode. Boomers can't tell the difference between AI and real life.
We've seen the video, kid. How long have you and Totoro been sexually active?
What? I don't know nothing!
Yeah, see, the old Butters would have just said, "Oh, hamburgers" in that situation, not stand up to the cops. Now, if you've ever stumbled upon a boomer-filled comment section on an AI video, you already know how real this is. For some reason, they have no ability to discern AI from reality at all. And I love that they're poking fun at that in this episode. But what really makes this hit for me is the fact that they chose to represent this dynamic through the South Park police. Because the idea of actual authority figures running around and trying to arrest people for things that didn't happen because they're too dumb to tell that it's AI, that's a good bit. Plus, the whole thing with South Park police being beyond incompetent is a running gag of the show that I've always really enjoyed, especially since they almost always seem to be super disconnected from reality. You know, like how they think Totoro is a real creature that actually molests people. So this whole thing was just very up my alley. Though I do have to wonder if there's a kernel of truth to this gag. I mean, between the improvements in the technology and services to get rid of watermarks like on Sora, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes from being a joke to one of those moments where it's life imitating art, you know? But either way, that's definitely not the main commentary that this episode is going for, because it seems like what they really want to harp on here is that using AI to recreate something that takes a lot of love and hard work to make is absolutely lame as f***. Which is exactly the message that the Studio Ghibli people say when they interrupt the police interrogation of Butters.
It takes hundreds of artists 3 years to make a Totoro!
Now, for anyone that doesn't know, there was a trend a little while back where people were using an AI filter to convert videos of themselves into the Studio Ghibli art style, and this eventually led to the creator of that filter tweeting that the studio had sent them a cease and desist. Wait, sorry, a cease and desist for making the app available to the public. Now, of course, in reality, that cease and desist was fake. Studio Ghibli actually made a rare public statement saying that they never sent anything to the creator, but the whole thing did end up becoming a controversy online where people were attacking the use of the filter, calling it stealing. And that seems to be how Trey and Matt feel about it too. I mean, they present it in a funny way by doing the fake Japanese voices, but I think that controversy actually hit really close for them, because when Sora 2 was released, people went nuts with making AI South Park videos. Like, there were so many of them that the app had to ban South Park as a topic because it was being so abused. And while those videos obviously didn't look quite right, they had all sorts of weird visual glitches and the voices were kind of off, people were actually able to put together stories that kind of felt like real episodes. I mean, they were terrible episodes, but it was definitely a big step up from what we were seeing from AI just a couple years earlier, which is enough to be concerning. I mean, just look at this.
Pickleball-a-roo! 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 Pickleball-a-roo!
Dude, this sucks. We've been out here 10 minutes and I'm already bored out of my mind. Pickleball's a lame-ass old people game.
It's not quite South Park, but it feels like they're stealing an IP that isn't theirs and watering it down with their crappy imitation, which is definitely not cool. And I have to assume that as this technology improves, we're only going to see more companies using it to replace writers and animators and so on, which is only going to put more and more people out of work and infest our favorite content hubs with more and more slop. Like, did you know that Disney Plus just announced that they're going to be adding AI-generated short-form content from users soon? That's weird. Plus, there was a post recently that went viral because someone spotted a newspaper article that was clearly written by ChatGPT, which they were able to figure out because the editor left in the suggested prompt like a massive tool. So that's why I think a big part of this episode is the show saying, hey, stop stealing our shit for free. That's copyright infringement, give me money. While also simultaneously saying, why do you even like this? It's nothing like the real thing. Which is almost exactly what Cartman says to Peter Thiel, who is creating these fake videos to appease Leanne while he waits to transport Eric to Washington.
Not for free, dude. If you want to use me, then you gotta pay a motherfucker. You don't get to make me go do a bunch of weird that I would normally never do.
Now for the rest of the storyline with the kids, this is where the show starts to collapse out of its own reality, because the second act of this episode opens with Kyle trying to help Butters and Red form a truce and put an end to their little AI war. But things immediately start to feel off when Kyle insists that he's a smart guy because he's a Jew, and then out of nowhere, Droopy the dog shows up and takes a massive dump in Kyle's mouth. Yeah, that's that was something. Now, aside from the fact that Red is clearly extremely petty, because as far as we know, she had no reason to include Kyle in all of this, I really like that they're playing with reality so much here. Because when it comes to the kids, we have no way of knowing if the scene we're watching is gonna be real or another AI video. I mean, eventually it gets completely insane and we can tell from that, but they always start out feeling normal, which makes us second guess what we're seeing. It honestly kind of reminds me of the episode Grounded Vindaloop, where you can't tell what's VR and what's reality until the very end of the episode. Not that they go that intense with it here, but there's definitely a similar flavor going on. And I just really enjoy how it reflects with what the South Park police are doing, because they also can't tell the difference between AI and reality, though obviously they're much stupider and that's why they can't figure it out, but that leads to them buying into all sorts of ridiculous nonsense. Like, check out this investigation board they have set up in the office. They have kids being assaulted by Yogi Bear, Garfield, the Pink Panther, Betty Boop, Felix the Cats? Man, they got some niche cartoon characters on here. Like, what 8-year-old in 2025 knows anything about Betty Boop? But yeah, because the cops are so stupid, they think that the kids are actually approaching these cartoon characters in real life, which inspires them to dress up as Rocky and Bullwinkle to try and gain Red's trust and get her to testify.
Hey there, little girl. It's Rocky and Bullwinkle. You looking for a good time?
See, this is why I love the stupid cops in this show. This is the exact kind of absurd dumbassery that makes South Park so great. But I just wish that we got to see a true follow-up to this scene for the boys. Because what we get instead is a courthouse scene that feels like a follow-up, but then it turns into another reality break moment where a character from Bluey is on the stand talking about what Butters, Kyle, and Kenny made her do. And the big issue that gets the courthouse gasping and murmuring isn't even the sexual act that they supposedly forced her to perform, it's the fact that she didn't get 1 cent for it. Because like I said earlier, one of the biggest messages in this episode is that Sora is enabling people to steal intellectual property and abuse copyright loopholes. But the crazy part is, I'm pretty sure this scene isn't AI, because the cops are at the courthouse here, and the proceedings actually lead to them making a bust. It helps them realize that the videos of Eric are also AI, and they trace them back to the source, which ends up being Peter Thiel, who they arrest. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that that was actually a character from Bluey on the stand, complaining that she didn't get paid for their Sora videos, which means that maybe that investigation board at the police station really was true. Maybe Yogi Bear really did give that kid his picnic basket. Anyways, that pretty much wraps up the story in South Park, but there's also the secondary story that's going on in the White House. And oh boy, is it a weird one. It begins with Trump being mad at Vance for manipulating him into trying to abort Satan's baby, which is a continuation from the previous episode. But it very quickly progresses into them becoming lovers, which is just very disturbing. Like, I know that we've had jokes all season about Trump being in bed with Satan, but this episode gives us a full-on sex scene between Vance and Trump, and I don't even know what to say about it. I think the most notable part story-wise is that Vance is clearly just doing this to solidify his position as the next president, and that he's willing to stoop to this to get it. But my God, I can't believe they actually animated as much of that as they did. Now, obviously I can't show that on YouTube, so have this much milder kissing scene instead. One thing I couldn't help but notice is that when they're in the presidential bathroom hot tub, you can see that Towley is in the background, so he's once again listening to their plans to abort Satan's baby, but they don't really animate him, they just kind of have him lying there inconspicuously. So I'm excited for the moment when he finally spills the beans to Satan, because I'm fully expecting him to be the hero of the season at this point. Also, I gotta say, the water animation in that hot tub looks insanely good for some reason. I don't know what it is, but it made me really want to get in a hot tub when I saw it. So I'm probably gonna have to call up Pat Pat Finnerty after I'm done making this video. The real ones know what I'm talking about. Also, just kidding, I wish I knew Pat Finnerty. But yeah, the main connection between this Trump storyline and the rest of the episode comes down to blurring the lines between AI and reality. Because when Peter Thiel is busted by the cops, they find out that he also had surveillance cameras planted around the White House. And on those cameras, he just so happened to capture that awful sex scene that I don't want to remember. So when the footage gets leaked to Fox News, everyone there is incredibly sad and disappointed because it means that Trump and Satan are probably gonna break up, which gives us another hilarious Fox News alert delivery.
This is a Fox News special alert.
Yeah, that's easily gotta be one of my favorite recurring gags of this season. Anyway, before the segment can go on for more than like 30 seconds, Trump announces that the footage was just AI, that it was fake news, which Fox and his fan base is eager to believe without any scrutiny, thus preserving the Satan butt baby storyline for at least another episode. Now obviously, this is the flip side to what we were seeing with the cops throughout the episode. They believed that AI was reality, whereas the Fox News people believed that reality was AI. And I think that's a pretty interesting angle to get into because that is the double-edged sword here. If AI blurs the lines between reality and non-reality, then it goes both ways. It makes it easier for someone to hide the truth by telling people not to believe their eyes. And that's just the thing. The people will listen. They won't believe their eyes. Even Satan in this episode, who is very suspicious of Trump and shown to be smart, totally buys into the lie that the Vance footage was AI. So I felt like that was a very effective ending for the episode to go with, given that it deliberately went out of its way to blur the lines between the show and the Sora videos throughout the whole thing. Plus, it's pretty consistent with the fact that Trump basically popularized the term fake news. So all in all, I thought it was a pretty clever ending to the episode in terms of messaging. But anyways, I do have some criticisms and thoughts that didn't quite fit into this recap, so let's get into the review portion of the video now. So first of all, I think that this is one of the stronger episodes of this run. The AI videos were hilarious, the cops were on point as usual, and I like that we're getting more of Red. But I couldn't help but feel like the story with the kids didn't quite wrap up. Like, I know that the courthouse scene led to the cops arresting Peter Thiel, but it felt kind of weird to just leave the kids in that courthouse and not go back to them in any way. I feel like this would have been a good opportunity for them to bust out the classic "I learned something today" speech, which could have still led to the fake news ending with Trump, but at least that way we get a sense of closure with the boys in Red. Like, do any of them feel bad for what they did, or do they feel justified? I kind of wanted to know, and we never really got to see. And also, while we're on the subject of rushed endings, I was very surprised that the Cartman and Peter Thiel plotline just crapped out like that. I fully thought that Cartman was gonna meet Trump and that some sort of hilarious shenanigans would ensue from there. But this feels almost like they just changed their minds about whatever they had planned and decided to write themselves out of the situation, which could be a good thing for all we know. I have no idea what they originally had planned, but I think it really depends on what they're gonna do, because this is definitely the type of season where they have to do a good job of landing the plane, or else it'll feel like we got all this serialized storytelling for nothing. And the fact that they set up something with the Antichrist 6-7 bit only to undo it 2 episodes later is not a good sign in my opinion. It has me a bit worried that they don't have as much of a plan as they initially led on. But then again, it's also too early to actually know if that's the case, so I'll be patiently waiting to see where they go with these last 2 episodes. At this point, I'm just hoping that they don't undo the MAGA Jesus stuff as quickly as they undid the Cartman stuff, because I definitely noticed Jesus's absence in these last 2 episodes. And of all the storyline elements in the air right now, his plotline is easily the one I'm most interested in. So hopefully whatever we get with that is gonna be satisfying. Also, I'm just assuming that these last 2 episodes are gonna be a 2-parter, right? I mean, it just seems like the obvious choice given how things have played out so far. Though to be honest, I kind of thought we were gonna get a 3-parter before this episode aired. So again, I could definitely be wrong here, but there are just so many loose threads going on right now between the absence of Mackie, PC Principal being a MAGA Christian, Towley overhearing everything, Trump and Vance becoming an item, the general plan to get rid of Satan's baby. So I'm definitely at the point where I'm ready to see how they tie it all together. Anyways, those are my general thoughts for the episode. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with what we got, though like with many episodes in this season, I think the ending could have been a bit stronger, at least in terms of the boys. Anyways, I'm tired, my voice hurts, you probably noticed that it sounds kind of weird. It's because I spent the last week recording a mega giant video that is like 90 minutes long, so hopefully that'll be out soon. But yeah, I'm done now, so I'm gonna go intoxicate myself until I can no longer picture that horrifying sex scene anymore. Peace!